And one of those people is Alan Dershowitz, professor emeritus and Harvard Law School author and guilt by accusation author. He's a Newsmax analyst. He is joining us live. Alan, thanks so much for answering our call this morning. I'm just curious, your overall thoughts here. You've heard the president and First Lady Melania Trump tested positive for coronavirus. Have you reached out to him?
Oh, of course not, except through this program to wish him well and to give him what we call in Hebrew a refuah shlema, a complete recovery. Our thoughts are with him. The thoughts of all Americans, regardless of political party, are with him and his wife. This is not the time to be thinking seriously about the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment is supposed to be invoked only in cases of incapacity, which means inability to govern, unconsciousness, coma, that kind of thing. He can govern while recovering from coronavirus. God forbid he would have to be intubated or he'd have to go into a respirator. That would be a very, very different matter. But at this point in time, he is the president. He will remain the president. But the two issues that we have to think about just for the future is what would happen, hypothetically, if he could not govern. Two issues. One, who would take over until January 20th? And second, what if he could not run for president? If for some reason the decision was made that he was not able to run, how would the Republican Party be able to substitute a nominee for him? It would not automatically be the Vice President of the United States. There is no constitutional barrier to the Republican Party coming up with a new approach and picking an entirely new candidate to run. They could pick any ticket literally up to the end. Now, state by state, there may be restrictions, and one would have to look into whether there are state restrictions, whether it's too late to put other people's names on the ballot. These are questions that we should be thinking hard about, because the one thing we don't want is a crisis to occur on the eve of the election and not knowing what the options are for the Republican Party and for the election itself.
Professor, that makes you wonder, though, quite frankly, we are in full swing of this election season. Some people have already received their ballots. Some people have already voted. Of course, it would be President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence on the ballot. Would that change anything?
It would. It would. I mean, in a state where people have voted, say, for example, the Republican might think of putting Nikki Haley on the ballot. Obviously, that's just one name among many, or Mike Pompeo. There are many names that have been mentioned. That probably wouldn't be possible at this point. It conceivably, you could, let's assume you wanted to substitute somebody on the ballot, you could conceivably cancel the votes that have been cast, because, a vote for President Trump doesn't automatically translate into a vote for any Republican nominee. That would deny people the right to pick and choose their candidate. But you could give them the option of re-voting by mail or any other way. Look, we've never had this in our history. We've never come close to having this in our history. I never imagined we'd live through a period where there are so many contingencies that occur. I've written extensively about what would happen during an election with a pandemic, but I never anticipated this issue. And we have to make sure that our Constitution and our laws are flexible enough to take into account any eventuality and make sure that democratic principles prevail.
Absolutely. Want to make note, too, that the White House physician had released a statement saying the president and first lady are both well at this time. Of course, we are considering everything, and we appreciate you weighing in. Professor Alan Dershowitz joining us live this morning. Thank you. You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.